Do you need help?
They're taking away people's hopes and dreams and their self-fulfillment. I think self-fulfillment matters. I don't care if I'm the...
It's all about selling drugs.
If you are a child, you better not smile, 'cause they'll take you to the quack, put you on legal crack. So if you are a child, you better not smile, 'cause they'll take you to the quack, put you on Prozac.
Post-SSRI Sexual Dysfunction, or PSSD abbreviated, is permanent sexual dysfunction caused by the class of drugs marketed as antidepressants. Despite exercising the choice to stop taking antidepressants, people are left stuck with sexual dysfunction caused by the antidepressants indefinitely, many years afterwards. This can be so torturous that some people have taken their lives. Other common effects that often accompany post-SSRI sexual dysfunction are emotional numbing and detachment, referred to as anhedonia. I really recommend that you Google post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. You will find many absolutely horrifying, bone-chilling, unnecessary accounts.
Welcome back. You're with Daryl Brown, author of the blog Sterilising the Mentally Ill, and I'm joined with Naveen Erland, who also was given permanent sexual dysfunction from antidepressants, this PSSD, when he was young too. You are 21, is that correct, Naveen?
I'm 20 now.
20 now?
Yeah. And 19 on the drugs.
They gave them to you at 19?
Yeah.
Were you ever told antidepressants could cause sexual dysfunction or permanent harms?
Well, I was told by my GP that they could cause sexual dysfunction when you're actually on the drug, but I was never told by anyone that it could continue indefinitely.
I was told if there's any problem, will you just come off the drugs?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was told as well.
How did you get inducted into taking the drugs?
Well, I was seeing a counsellor at my university, and she brought it up as like a miracle cure for any mental illness. She was like, "Oh, they're definitely not as bad as people make them out to be. You should look into it." And then I put that at the back of my head, and then my GP basically said the same thing. He said that they do have side effects, but they're not serious. I mean, these are like third generation drugs. They've been tested, so they'll be fine. And then I brought it up with another GP, and then I got on them, because as soon as you ask a GP to take the drugs, they give them to you.
So you didn't get any sort of test for mental illness then?
No. Well, they just take your word for it, which is good if they're going to prescribe something healthier, but not good if they're going to prescribe these powerful drugs.
I agree. Did your doctors ever report any of the adverse effects his or her drugs gave you?
Well, I went back around a couple of months into the withdrawal, and then my doctor was very skeptical, as they are, and he said, we're going to run all the other tests before we can conclude anything like this. So we did, and then he said, oh, well, I still don't really think it's the drugs, which was great.
But did he fill out a yellow side effect report form, like a yellow cards report form or anything like that?
No, he didn't. I had to do that myself.
Did he tell you about the yellow card reporting form?
No.
So you had to find it out for yourself, and your doctor didn't send that off or report that at all?
No. I had to find it myself, yeah.
What about any psychologists?
Well, I recently have seen a psychologist who takes my word for it, and we're doing a program which is just like a general well-being program, and he's accepted it. And I've had two psychiatrists who I had to pay to see, because the NHS one said it was rubbish, and I've had two private psychiatrists who've acknowledged that it can happen, but that's been very recent.
Did they know that you'd sent off a side effect report form? Any of the psychologists or anyone?
No.
So they didn't ask you if you'd reported it or anything, or they didn't suggest reporting it? They didn't report it themselves or nothing like that?
No, nothing.
Okay. How long since you stopped taking antidepressants have you been living with post-SSRI sexual dysfunction from antidepressants?
It's been a year now. Probably, 13 months. Yeah, I do have PSSD.
So that must be really hard. You're 20 years old and now,
Yeah.
and so that I was around a similar age. It must be really tough around your peers.
Yeah, well, I deferred university because I just couldn't hack it anymore because of all the other cognitive side effects. So I've had to break up with my girlfriend because obviously you can't be in a relationship when you don't have any like passion or emotion. So yeah, it's been very tough.
What first happened? Like, how did you first know your body was being sexually harmed?
Well, I think I had some problems when I was actually on the drug, and then probably around 3 weeks after I stopped taking, I felt everything shut off. Like it was mainly my cognitive function that shut off, and I realized I couldn't even think properly. Like I didn't have that internal monologue, and I didn't have like daydreams or anything like that. And that's when it really set in that I had something severe.
Yeah, you know something is going wrong with your brain from the drug. I couldn't focus on withdrawal to an extreme length, and I still, 7 years later, still have those lingering effects of not being able to focus, not being able to. I don't know about you. I don't have any sexual dreams anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've had sexual dreams where I'm not interested.
Nightmares, then. Not, yeah.
Yeah.
How scary was that when this was happening? I mean, how scary was that?
Well, initially it wasn't scary at all because I couldn't even feel fear. I couldn't even perceive the problem. And yeah, so I couldn't even feel scared. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, I tried to pretend it wasn't real for like a year or something.
Oh yeah, me too. Like I convinced myself that if you're in the right surroundings, things will switch on.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that far away to, I don't know. It's a very weird possession and it's a very nasty possession to do to another human being. What did your doctor say about permanent damage caused from antidepressants? So, what's your experience regarding that?
Well, the GP who prescribed me the pills said that there are anecdotal reports of some people having long-term issues, but he wrapped it up in a way that made it seem like it's very rare. It never happens, basically. And he said that no doctor he's ever talked to has had patients who've had long-term effects. But see, now he wouldn't consider me to have long-term effects from the drug because he didn't accept.
They just fobbed me off. They said, oh well, like the longer it went on that I was having these effects that were that it wasn't going away. They just said, oh, for some people it might take 2 years or a few years, or they just kept making it like a longer thing that kind of fobbing off.
And it's been 7 years now, right?
Oh yeah, 7 years. Yeah, it hasn't.
What would they say now?
Well, then they made up that it doesn't exist because they just said, oh well, you've got a history of mental health, it's a mental illness, or they made up a few new mental illnesses. They tried saying it was other medical diseases, anything but the medications. But I knew exactly what was happening to me when I was there, during withdrawal, and obviously the way I've been left with. And when I initiated the drug, I noticed some sexual things, one of the, in some ways, but I was used to being, it didn't really come across like that because it was called medications.
Yeah. And it's so horrible. Like it's because anyone who's had even like a small mental illness in the past has immediately what they say is delegitimized in the eyes of doctors.
Yeah, you're already under getting into the mental health. The whole induction into mental health is they always say, oh, it's not a I don't know, it's not a hospital, it's not a prison, or you're not crazy, it's mental health kind of thing. Yeah. But once you've got once they've already inducted you, then can be tough to be believed about something you said. So you had to.
Yeah, and the thing is, they believe you when you tell them, oh, I have depression. They believe you in the beginning, and then apparently after you report problems, your self-evaluation is no longer valid. It's ridiculous.
I would call that initiation. I would say this is PSSD is the worst torture. It is way worse than the OCD and Tourette syndrome I was giving them for. How has the emotional detachment referred to as anhedonia associated with PSSD affected your life afterwards? I think you said some of it. But
it's affected everything. Like, so much of our lives is based around that short-term reward, and we don't have that anymore. So like, I don't want to hang out with my friends because there's no point doing that. My hobbies I have no passion anymore. I deferred university, broke up with my girlfriend, like I said. It's affected everything.
That's terrible. I mean, you're really young. Like, what were you like before with hanging out with? Did you want to hang out with your friends before?
Yeah. Of course. I had a good relationship. I was in uni. Like, I was prescribed the drugs for moderate anxiety, I'd say, which meant that I got a bit nervous when I was meeting new people. If I had to do like something like this, I get a bit nervous. But it was nothing severe, and now nothing is pleasurable.
I can ascribe to that. It really it feels like a sexual death in the morning. I was like, morning. I've heard that used before. Sexual death is, well, sexual murder is what I'd call it, but. Yeah. That's shocking. I mean, I had plans for my life before it happened, and I've got to say all those plans. Then I went out the window. I have my plans went out the window. I was very much looking forward to my life before that came along.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. And I don't think I'll be able to follow the same route as I wanted to now.
How, I can guess the answer, but have you received any financial compensation?
No. I mean, they don't compensate people for this.
I can contest to that. I've tried ringing up the medical injury claims, but it's all totally legal. What has been done is all totally legal. You mentioned about the way you went to the doctor when you were feeling anxiety. I guess you've seen the mental health charity farmer-funded adverts, and you've received your mental health indoctrination, I assume.
Yeah. Well, it releases serotonin in the brain, and that fixes everything. That's what they told me.
Wow. I think the problem is that it doesn't release the old serotonin in the brain. I don't know if you've heard about the way it says supposedly work or whatever.
Well, it might do that, but the fact is that the brain is so much more complicated than just serotonin fixes everything. I mean, if you release more serotonin, there's the studies that show dopamine goes down. It could be that, and there's no research into what this actually is. So
I agree. I was actually shown cartoons as a child that this of how this was wrong in my brain, but it was a lie.
Yeah, I watched that video. I think you had the video up about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How have your friends and family taken it?
Well, it's such a difficult thing for people outside to be able to empathize with and understand, because it's so alien from their reality. That my mum has been great, and she's the only one who's really been able to understand it to any degree. And well, I've lost a couple of friends because they're just insulted that I don't have any interest in hanging out with them, and I'm not enjoyable to be around really now. And for the most part, my friends just don't know what to say really, and I don't talk about it to them. So that's fine, I guess.
I imagine you didn't expect to have to talk to your mum at 20 years old or 19 years old and tell her that you had sexual dysfunction.
No, I think I avoided that for ages, and I've stressed the emotional problems more than anything else with family and friends.
Is there anything that strikes you about this that people should know?
Well, people just need to be aware that this problem exists before they take the pills. I mean, so many people do these pills as a first port of call. They haven't even tried exercise, diet. They haven't tried anything else, and they just take the pills. I think if people knew about the potential for permanent effects, that would be enough.
Yeah, I agree. Like, problems can go up and down, or perceived problems can go up and down. I know the doctors rubbished. I mean, generally, I don't know if you've had that experience from PSSD. They've rubbished that, laugh sometimes, that antidepressants could cause permanent harms.
Yeah.
For many years.
Yeah.
Considering the English Wikipedia with 58 medical references on PSSD was removed, and studies like in a Spanish study with 1,022 people that show 59% incur sexual dysfunction from antidepressants, do you think there is foul play?
Well, I think it's definitely possible. Like, you can't prove it, but it's definitely possible, and especially because the pharma companies doing the studies don't have to release most of the negative results they get. So they're probably aware that these problems can happen, and therefore may scour the net and try to attack people who are voicing out about it. But also, I think people in general, they've made these drugs seem so harmless that people in general are skeptical when they hear people talking about permanent dysfunction. So it could just be that the average person doesn't accept it and is editing those Wikipedia pages.
Yeah, it's a big pot of investment.
Yeah, a lot of money involved.
You don't trust Pfizer and Glaxo. You don't think we should blindly trust their studies then?
No. I was reading Big Pharma. That's a book everyone should read. And they don't have to release the studies that don't conform with their beliefs. And no one can make them release that stuff.
How do you feel about the so-called antidepressants being used in studies and stuff by the government on paedophiles because of the quotation high incidence of sexual dysfunction in other settings? I mean, would that have changed your mind about taking them if you knew that?
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, that's just acknowledging it, like directly.
Exactly, and you know the one about they use them to stop premature ejaculation because of the numbing effects as well.
Yeah. Well, it is well reported that they have sexual effects on the drugs.
Yeah, it's been since the beginning, since like the 60s. I mean, it wasn't something that wasn't known, in my opinion, and that's not even considering the underground studies, in my opinion. Like you say, that they don't have to release or anything.
Yeah.
The one, I don't know if you've heard about thalidomide, but this is quite like a serial thing with all these drugs and stuff that are supposedly safe and effective. But thalidomide is coming to light that it was used in concentration camps on people before it became, before Otto Ambras used it. He was a Nazi war criminal, used it in concentration camps before it was then released to the market through the drug. He was still working for drug companies and stuff, even I think after he got released from prison, Nuremberg trials and stuff, he was still working for the chemical and agrochemical companies. And there's a lot of addictive drugs. There's thalidomide, benzos. It's safe and effective is more of a joke than a reality, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you think potential sufferers are aware of post-SSRI sexual dysfunction that were caused by their quote-unquote medication?
No, they're obviously not. I mean, the doctors rarely tell anyone of the potential for permanent sexual dysfunction. I mean, I think 99.9% of them aren't even aware of it. So no one's told.
This is something that most people would absolutely not talk about. I'd like to thank you for being so brave.
Thanks for having me on.
Would you like to play a new game of side effect roulette?
Sure.
So we'll have to wait till next week.
We've got the rules figured out.
Thank you, Naveen Erland, for doing this.
My pleasure.